this survey. We then create some recommendations. The first one we would like to recommend to the government from the central to provincial level to review the current strategies in each ministry to identify priority areas to increase food security. And then we also need to come up with a policy to address needs for food emergencies. And this food emergency can be from the inflation and other economic crisis or from natural disasters. And we also need to identify food insecurity needs in different provinces and submit a proper request to the central government or our development partners for support. We also need to hold a national and provincial food security response coordination meetings at the provincial and central level, so that requests for support can be discussed during this platform or meetings. And so here are some recommendations that we would like to provide to the provincial and central authority. Now, for our development partners or donors, we would like to ask that our donor provide additional emergency funds for food securities. Either in the form of cash transfer, especially during emergency situations. And the donor should also mobilize the funds to respond to emergency situation via the projects or that are already in places in these provinces to respond better during these emergency situations. Apology to the audience online. At the moment, I cannot hear anything from the speaker.โอ้แล้วเสียงผู้กำลังเสนออะไรบ่มีเราได้เปิดไมค์อยู่ป่ะเราปิดไมค์มันวะ So we would like to increase the funding support in Lao PDR and also for ongoing projects to ensure that there's more initiatives for food security, and we would like to recommend to provide more funding support to the projects to ensure food security and nutrition sensitive needs at the community level in the next 5 years. We also so these are some recommendations to our donors. And then we also have recommendations for other implementing development partners, especially our DPs who work at the local level. we would like to encourage that you work more with CSO to address food insecurity issues and to find time to meet with CSO to find common understandings and find solutions together in the area that you work with CSO and INGO in your province or district. And we would like you to support the national and provincial coordination mechanism for food insecurity for agricultural sector and health sector. And then from the study, we would like to also provide some recommendation to SUN CSA members who are working in 14 provinces. The first one is to monitor needs in communities and monitor changes in communities and to identify the needs for food security and update this information through for the networks members and to share lesson regularly and advocate for collective response to food security issue with government and other DPs. Organization should review and adjust current projects to increase food security. In particular, they should review the current activities and project if possible. There should be more activities on food security. And then we would like to also recommend sharing your ideas and effort within the network through online platform or face-to-face or through coordination meetings. Apart from that, if you have the opportunity to create new project proposals, I would like you to think about or consider adding the food security emergency response in your project proposal. We would also like you to consider developing emergency projects to support food security directly or indirectly, and the activities should also include some activities to support the victims directly, such as cash transfer or food distribution to support with the agricultural production. We also would like you to increase the coverage area of your project. We would also like to encourage you to communicate with donors to better respond to the crisis at the local level. So here's the recommendations that we would like to extend to our SUN CSA members. So in summary, from this study, we find that the majority of the people are facing some economic hardships, and the price of fuel and food has or the increase of price of fuel and food has negatively impacted the household of food security. And then the situation exacerbated further because of the climate changes and impact from these climate changes. So the government and the donors and other DP must come together to discuss on how to respond to this current crisis, and people must receive support in the form of money or other materials and farming techniques. So so these are the area that we think we need to address more based on these studies. So that would conclude my presentation that I would like to share with you about the impacts of the key impacts of inflation crisis on food security in Laos. I hope that this would be a useful piece of information for all of you who are conducting activities in your areas. And that would conclude my presentation. And if you have any questions, suggestions, please feel free to let me know. And once again, our team who contributed to this study are also willing to share information with you and work with you about these studies. Thank you very much. Thank you to Mr. Thongchanhh Bouphavong for sharing the findings from this study. Now, I would like to invite all participants online and offline who have questions, please ask the question right away. Thank you very much, Thongchanhh, for the very interesting presentation. My name is Ketmani Rasavong from the Public Health and Lao Tropical Disease Institution. I would like to ask about the people who are being impacted by this inflation. Do you know which provinces do they reside? And is there any difference between people living in rural and urban area? And because people who live in urban area might have problems with the land that are available for agricultural purpose, and how do they cope with that? And secondly, did you take a look at their nutrition, or did you just ask them questions in general? My understanding is that you did this survey in February this year, but the questionnaire was for a 12-month period from February this year. But when you want to look at the nutrition status, there might be some question that you might have to ask them in order to really understand their nutrition status. Thank you, Dr. Ketmani from TPHI. Thank you very much for the question. And for those who face the challenges, whether in the urban or rural area, for this, we have asked our network members who work in different provinces in 35 districts to use the questionnaire survey, that the same questionnaire survey for all 35 districts. So the people who work at the community, they will ask people in the community, and the organizations that work in urban area, they would then ask people in the urban settings. And we didn't really focus that this has to be people in the rural area. And the second question, when we conducted the survey, did we focus more on nutrition related questions? And when we and what are the durations of this survey? So the question was meant to be for their experiences in the previous year or 12 months. So from that point on and looking back 1 year earlier, so we asked them from February and we asked them, so in the past 1 year, what kind of challenges did they face? And we asked them about their economic situations, their earnings, their food security situation in the household, and how were those things impacted by the inflation. That would be my response to you. Maybe my question wasn't that clear. Allow me to rephrase them again. Let's go to slide number 8. When you have the percentages of people that face some challenges in the previous year, you said 88% say they face some challenge. So of these 88%, where are the response from mostly, for these 88%? And compare, and I would like to know of these 88%, how many of them are from the capital and how many of them are from the rural areas or the province? Is there any way to find out more about this? Well, this can be shown in our survey form. When we conduct the survey for Vientiane, we only had 17 respondents. And the majority of the respondents are in the other provinces. As I mentioned in this survey, we only can rely on our networks member who are already have their offices or activities in the province that they work. So most of our members works in the provinces such as Udom Sai, Hua Phan, Kham Muon, Savannakhet, Luang Prabang. So these are people who responded, but these are not people who face a challenge, right? Yes, that's right. Okay. But going back to that question again, can you break down which province face the most challenge? You cannot get that number, right? Yes, we cannot get that. Is there any way I can find out the details about that of the breakdown? Yes, if you are interested in the detail of the breakdown of which province faced the challenge, then we can share the data with you. Thank you. My apology with everyone. I am Tukta from the SUN CSA Secretariat. I'm also the same from the members from Dr. Thongchanhh. If you need to learn more about the details of this survey, and all of these details are included in the full report, which will be made available on SUN CSA website. I will paste the link in our chat box. Apart from the full report, we also have the executive summaries that we produce as a pamphlet for this survey. And there's also going to be a separate report on food security from different DPs such as World Bank, WFP, that are in the form of full reports or pamphlet like I just mentioned. And there is a page that we have set up to summarize all of this information in one place. Thank you to Dr. Ketmani for the question and Tukta for the clarification. Next, we have Dr. Sampon from Lao TPHI. Thank you very much. Good morning. I am Dr. Sampon Bouphavong, also from TPHI. First of all, congratulations for these studies and the findings, because at the moment I'm working on nutrition research agendas, and I believe that this study would greatly support my studies, which will be made available in July, August this year. Now, I just want to share with you some points that from my experience with you. And if you can share some information with me, I would greatly appreciate that. I would like to ask about the evaluation of food insecurity. How did you evaluate food insecurity? And can you explain a little bit about that? And secondly, I think there's one question that you asked a participant to choose 1 out of 3 choices, and you gave them, oh no, you have multiple choice and they can select 3 answers. So do you have multiple answers question, or did you provide open-end question? Let me rephrase that. And third question, after your survey, have you categorized the impact into different levels? For example, for the people who responded that they were impacted in the inflation rate, did you try to find a way to categorize them in terms of food insecurity? And lastly, you said that maybe I missed something on food insecurity in your explanation. I think everybody faced this problem, but how did you determine the correlations between inflation with food insecurity? Because in your explanation, you said that some people skip meal for the entire day, for the whole day, because the price has increased tremendously and they could not afford this. Can you elaborate more on that, please? Thank you. Thank you very much for the questions from our participants. The secretariat members or the team member or other participants, is there any other questions first before I respond to that? I would like to get a question. Yes, I do have. My name is Michael Bongsai from the Nutrition Center. I have been listening to your survey on inflation, the impacts of inflation rate on food security. I see that there's actual impacts toward household expenses in 19 or 17 provinces that you conduct the research. And I can say that, and for inflation, we see that it has impact on nutrition, but from your study, I didn't see any impacts toward nutrition. And how did that impact different groups of people, or does it impact the household as a whole? And how does inflation impact the nutrition? Did people receive less nutrition because of the inflation? I would like to ask you to study more on this, or did I miss something? Because the and we want to know what from this inflation impact, what made it difficult for the household to access food or health services. And we only see that because of this impact, they consume less, they eat less, but we don't really see how that impact different people's health. For example, how did the children consume less, or how did that nutritiously impact them? Did you collect information on this, or did I not see it? Because I don't see anything about nutrition. And I agree with what Dr. Sumpon said. The results from this study would be better understood if you can break down the details of the province that responded that they faced the challenge, and the people who had difficulty accessing food, and so we can really see which provinces are facing the most difficult situation, and then come up with a plan to respond to that. Thank you. Thank you for the suggestions. Any other feedback? So thank you very much for the questions. Those are very good questions towards these studies. In terms of evaluation, how did we evaluate? And we can share the information to our participants, whether we can share the information to our participants. For this question, our secretariat just informed everyone that we have upload all of the informations related to this survey onto our SUN CSA website. Now, the tools that we use to evaluate during this survey, we use the survey and some questions, multiple choices, and close-end question such as yes or no, and sometimes it's a numerous scale such as 1, 2, 3, 4. So there is a variety of questions that we use. We also have direct and indirect questions. For indirect questions, we prepare questions so that when they responded, we select the one that was responding to their answers. Now, for inflation, did we compare that with other indicators? After the study, we did not compare the level of inflation with any other sources to find out whether the inflation is at a moderate level or serious level. But I think that your suggestion is a very good one. So for future survey, we will consider about this more, so that in the future, when we completed the survey, we might compare the inflation rate with other indicators to get a fuller pictures on how serious this issue are. Now, in terms of support, what kind of support we can provide to different households, or I believe that with regards to food security, it would be one of the key mandates for the agriculture and forestry sector, and so we would discuss more about them. Now, with the suggestion about the lack of nutrition information, especially for children's nutrition, because the respondents of the survey are mostly the head of the household, and the question the questions would be answered based on their understandings of the question and also the understanding of the family's health and situation. But of course, when you have questions that ask them about food insecurity, and you see responding, you see answers that says things like they are not eating enough, they skip the meal, of course you can assume that it would have some impact on their nutrition. And for example, when there are people who normally consume 4 to 5 food of groups and now they only consume 2 or 3, and of course that would impact their nutrition, especially for children in the early years during their adolescence, or even pregnant women. It will definitely impact them, but we cannot say for sure how many families are being impacted because of this, and we don't know how many of them are malnutrition. So that would be my response for now. Or if anybody from my team who were involved in this study would like to respond to some of these questions, please feel free to do so, because you are actually in the field and collecting this data. Did you see the changes in their bodies, anything that would indicate that they are malnutrition? Yes, I just want to add one more thing about the survey in each province, because the methodology that we use this time is a joint study between members from our network. So the people who collect information, or the enumerator in this case, are members who already have presence in that provinces, who are currently working in that province, and we use a random sampling method. So we didn't really set a clear number of samples of how many samples we should collect in each province. So the results that you get here might not be a good representation of that province or even that region. However, in the full report that you will see, we have more breakdown of the details, especially in the provinces where we can conduct a high number of surveys, in particular Hua Pan and Udom Sai province. You would see the number of households and the number of people who responded to our survey. And with regards to one question, I think Thongchanhh might not answer that yet, which is about the severity of the food insecurity. What kind of questions did we have to gauge that? Actually, we had 8 questions to evaluate that. Those eight questions were based from FAO to determine the seriousness of the food insecurity, and that would also be included in the full report. Thank you. Can I ask another question? Yes, please. I think it's clearer now, but I just want to ask one more thing about your recommendations and plan for the future. From your study, I agree with a lot of things that you presented, especially there's one thing that you mentioned, that people have to come together and address food insecurity. And one challenge that we all have is the budget. So I would like to ask and share with you some question that we have. At the moment, we have school meal project and nutrition sensitive agriculture. And there's a lot of projects that are going on. So after seeing these results of these studies, and what kind of plan do you have for the future to solve this food insecurity based on your study? Thank you for the questions about future plans. So after we see these results, what are we going to do? One thing that our team have done is that we publicized these studies in May this year at Crown Plaza Hotel, and we invited all stakeholders from the governments, donors, DPs, and CSO to share their thoughts on and recommendations and to develop plans together. And we all share ideas on what we are going to do in the future after seeing these problems. And in that meeting, many organizations have expressed their commitment that they are going to provide some support, and as many of them are in the process of mobilizing the funds for the organization, and they will try to incorporate more of this study into their future projects. And some of them also express their desire to disseminate the result of these studies to the local authorities and local communities. And so for us at the central level, we will conduct activities related to food security through monthly meetings or online meetings, or through our meetings with DPs and the network's member to discuss about this issue. And we think that the member from our networks may include this the result from these studies into their activities that they are currently implementing. So that is the commitment that we have among our networks members. Is there any other questions from other participants? With regards to the question, the study, yes, that's one more person, Dr. Ketmani. Yes, I have one question related to food security. So in your questions, did you differentiate the question about the reasons for food insecurity? Was that because of the inflation, or did they already have the food insecurity problems prior to the inflation rate? Did you have that separate set of questions? And if you don't, I think that would be a good idea to have that questions as part of your survey, because we know that food insecurity in Laos is already a chronic problem, and I think that inflation might only exacerbate the problem, not the reason why food insecurity occurs. And did you also I understand that you also have network member who also measure the height and weight of people already. So in the future, if your study, you can also measure the height and weight of the individuals, then I think that your study would carry more weight in, with the governments for the policy makers to come up with some measures or intervention. Thank you. Thank you very much for the thoughts and suggestion. For the questions, we had a variety of questions as mentioned by the Secretariat member. We have designed the concepts, we have designed the questions and the survey with the collaborations from a lot of stakeholders, such as National University, WHO, and from those who have experience conducting the research and studies. If you are interested, you can download these questionnaires from our website. And so you can see different types of questions that we have, whether they are direct or indirect questions about food security. And for the recommendations, if we have other or further studies on this, I think it would be good to have the to measure the height and weight of our interviewees, and because in the past we interviewed them in several locations such as restaurants or the chief village office, so we don't really see the current situation in the households, and so in the future that would be good. Now for the measurement of the height and weight of children, that is also another good idea. Thank you very much. For the participants who asked questions, to help us understand better. Yeah. Thank you. I just want to add one more thing with regards to the question whether we have a separate question that asks our participants whether they are already having food insecurity problems prior to the inflation. We actually have a question that can tell whether this problem came from inflation or not. Before we ask many questions, we started out with questions such as, were you impacted by the inflations, and if they say yes, that means then there will be a question related to the inflation impact. But if they say no, I was not impacted by the inflation, then you can say that they are not impacted by the inflation. So you can see if there are people who were impacted by the inflation or not. Just want to add on that. Thank you for SUN CSA. Is there any other questions? Or is that all the questions? I think we have discussed quite thoroughly about the study. And if there is anyone from our participants who are interested in this study, yeah, I believe there's no more question. I think today is a good occasion, to welcome Mr. Thongchanhh Bouphavong to our workshop to share his experience about the study, and we can see a lot of impacts from inflation and how that impact the nutrition status and how that impact people in society, even though the study does not go into detail about everything, but we can see some portion of this problem that can be used as the basis for future studies. If there's no further question, then the dissemination of this study and this workshop would conclude now, and this is the end of the workshop for today. If you still have any question, or if you have anything that you are interested in particular, you can contact CSA or the nutrition center, who can definitely provide information to you. So on behalf of the nutrition center, I would like to thank Mr. Thongchanhh Bouphavong from ANRCB and a member of SUN CSA network for joining us today to share your experience, the result from your studies on the impacts of inflation on food security. And thank you to all of our participants for joining us today. And I hope that in the future, we would be able to have you in our future workshops again, and which we organize on a monthly basis. And before we leave, I just want to wish everyone good health, great success. Thank you very much. And on that note, I would like to declare the closing of this meeting. Thank you. I see in the chat box here that the survey did a question. We have a question whether people understand the meaning of inflation or not. So when my team conduct the survey, they say that the people understand what inflation is. They understand this term well. I think that would be the last question. Again, I would like to thank everyone for joining us. I would like to take a group photo before we leave and close this meeting. May I ask all of you to open your camera so we can take a screenshot? Is everyone ready? Thank you. See you all next month. Goodbye.